A variable is something that can be changed during the processing or the execution of the package. It's inside the package, so to speak. This is where you might use it for a single value, like a string or a date. You might use it as a counter or to store a number. You can also assign it as an object and use it as a list. So if you're a DBA, you might go in and make a list of your servers, and you load it into a variable. Then you can pull each server name off of the list and do something with it. But these things happen inside the package while the package is running, and it's specific to that package. The parameter tends to be used on the outside of the package, so to speak. Parameter would be something like the connection to your SQL server, the server name, the instance name. You might have a username and a password. You can also use it for file connections, a file path or a network path, like a UNC path, a // in the name of the folder. There also might be other configuration settings that your package needs in order to execute. So these things are configured to be for the package to begin. So they're for deployment, they're for the initial execution. So they're more, the way I put it is, it's more on the outside of the package. We're going to set up some parameters and variables and see if you can get a hang of how they work and how you can work with them. In this example, you're going to need integration services installed as a module. If you don't have that, you can click on the Continue with Code, click on the extensions in the menu and go to Manage Extensions, and then just type in integration in the search and you'll be able to find integration services. So we're going to create a new project, and we'll just call it Parameters. We'll call it Params and Vars. Once the project loads up, you'll see that there's a Parameters tab right in the middle. If you mouse over that, you'll see that it says, use this view to add, remove, edit, package parameters. If you look over to the right, on the tree under your project, you'll also have project params. Now the project parameters is a little bit different. It's on the project level as opposed to the package level. We're going to be working with the parameters at the package level for one single package and the variables within that single package. So the first thing I usually do is rename my package. Now we know the parameters is in the top of the screen in the tab, but there isn't a tab for variables. So you can get to the variables by going up to the extensions, and you'll see SSIS, and then variables. And you can also right-click on the background. This is not on an object. This is on the background of the package window, the design window. And you'll see variables in the right-click menu. So that's two different ways that you can get to the variables. Okay, what we're going to do is use a parameter to feed our connection to the local SQL service. And I have a couple of SQL instances here. So we're just going to make a connection to the VM Desktop WSQL02, which has the AdventureWorks database in it. I'm just going to drag a data flow task in here. Double click that, and we're looking for the OLEDB source. In order to create the object, I do need to have a valid connection. So if I click on New, I have a connection to 01 but not 02. Windows authentication, and we should see AdventureWorks on the drop down. Okay. Now at this point, I'm just going to choose one of our tables because we're not actually doing anything with the data. We're just going to be using this as demonstration. So I have a valid connection. The connection manager. So I now have a valid connection to my AdventureWorks 2017 database on WSQL02. Now over on the right side, close this, you'll see a properties window. I'll drag this out so it's easier to see. When you highlight the connection manager, it displays the properties for the connection manager. Now the properties is just what we piped in. The data source is the VM desktop / WSQL02. The initial catalog is the default setting. If you mouse over, it'll show you the full connection string. So we're going to change this. So the connection manager, we'll double click on that. I'm going to change it to something that's not valid. It took a second, but it tried to connect to 23. Instead of the WSQL 02, it tried to connect to 023. Now you see the old OLEDB source has a problem connecting. The connection manager has a little red icon. So obviously this connection is not working anymore. There's something wrong. So we're going to use a parameter to reassign the correct database instance. So we go up to parameters. We create a parameter, and just for this exercise we're going to separate them as a server and an instance. So the first parameter is just going to be called server, and that'll be VM desktop. It's not sensitive, it doesn't need to be encrypted, but it is required. That means that the package will not run unless I have a value in here. Doesn't necessarily mean the value needs to be valid. It just needs to have something in this parameter. We're going to create a second one, and we'll call this the instance. And that'll be WSQL 02. And this is also required. Now you might notice already that I can't put these together and connect because I have to have a slash in between them. So we did this on purpose. So I'm going to go back to my data flow. I'm going to highlight the connection manager so I can get my properties. And over here on the right side, under expressions, if you click this little box, you're going to get these little 3 dots on the right side. It might be hard to see on this screen. Click on that and you'll open up the property expressions editor. This allows you to change the properties of this object manually if you wanted to. You could actually, this description, you could actually just type it in here if you wanted to. So I'm going to go back to property. I'm going to find out if there's someplace I can put the server name. I could use connection string, but connection string is the whole thing. Data source equals initial catalog, integrated encryption or integrated authentication. That whole thing is the actual connection string. I just want the server name. So I'm going to scroll down, and there is a server name option. So I choose that, and then I hit the ellipse next to the expression box. And you'll see that this box actually gives you the variables and the parameters that are available in this package. If we expand that, you're going to find the two parameters that I created, instance and server. Just using the server, I can evaluate that expression. You can see the VM desktop as my server, which is correct. Then I need to concatenate, which is a plus sign, and I need to add a slash. Unfortunately, the slash is an escape character, so I need to actually use two slashes and then double quotes. And then the plus symbol again, because I need to add the instance name to the end of the string. So what I should get here is the server name plus a backslash plus the instance name without any spaces in between. And that worked okay. So now I need this value to be the server name for my connection. So now that I have the parameter correct, I click OK. The expression appears in the box there for server name. And now that I should have the correct server name using the parameters to set it. And actually that worked out right away. So the red icon and the red X's went away. And it shows as a valid VM desktop / WSQL02. In order to demonstrate a variable, we're going to use a variable in a query so we can manipulate the where statement. So to get to the variables, you can use the extensions SSIS and variables menu, or you can right click on the background, as I call it, and variables. And we're going to create a query. We're going to create a query to pull back employees, but we want to specify what type of employee. So we're going to look at the job title and create a where statement for that. Now if I wanted, let's say, the tool designer, I put it in single quotes here, and I'd only get records back for the tool designer. So this tool designer, I need to create a variable for this job title so I can put anything in there I want. So what we're going to do is copy this statement, go back to Visual Studio, and create a variable for job title. We'll just call it job title. I'll say var so we can tell the difference. The scope of this is the package, which means this variable only exists inside this package. And the data type is going to be a string, because that's what the where statement is comparing to. Value, we're going to leave nothing. Go into the OLEDB source. We currently have a table configured, the database log, and we're just querying that table for this value. So we need to change this to the SQL command. Then we're going to paste the query that we just copied from Management Studio. Be sure to click on the columns so it updates the fields. And click on preview, and it shows us that the job titles we're pulling back is the tool designer, which is correct. We're going to change tool designer to look at a variable for this value. If we clear out tool designer, we just place a question mark on that side of the equal sign. Then you go over to parameters and click parameters, and it'll give you the option to assign the variable to that parameter. And I realize the terminology is confusing considering we're talking about parameters and variables. So we'll call this param job title. And the variable that we created is also called job title. It should be user : job title. We're going to click OK. So the way to read this is select anything from human resources.employee where job title is equal to the variable value. Now if I click a preview, I get nothing because we have nothing in the variable right now. So we go back to our query window and let's find something different. Let's look for the production supervisor, WC60. So I'll click OK. I'm going to go to my variable down here at the bottom and change the value to production supervisor-W16. We'll go back into the source and we'll do the preview again. And now the preview runs the query and brings back, the production supervisor WC16. This is just to demonstrate the variable and how it works inside the package. There are many objects in here, things like for each, for example, that will use an object variable to iterate through values. I hope this explanation helps out. I hope you understand the parameters and the variables and a little bit more of how they interact inside the package. Please leave your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.